No role plays, no conference calls, no BS. Chris and Lorenzo share 4 decades of combined experience to help you become a more effective leader. This is Hacking Your Leadership.
Welcome to Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lorenzo.
And welcome to this week's Thoughtful Thursday. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube at Hacking Your Leadership and leave us a review on whatever podcast platform you're using. On this Thoughtful Thursday, I want to talk about the kind of rolling tech sector layoffs that have occurred over the last, probably 6 or 8 months. There have just been an inordinate amount of LinkedIn posts and social media posts. So I'm looking for work, and it didn't all happen at once. It's been happening kind of like as a trickle over the last few months, which leads me to understand that a lot of these companies are going through layoffs over and over and over again. It's not kind of just happening. It didn't just happen. It is happening. Like we're still in the midst of it. And I'm reminded of working at Best Buy a long time ago, and there was a period of time for about maybe 4 or 5 years where the company seemed to go through a reorg every single year, and it took a toll on employees who would like maybe not reach out to say, hey, I want to try that new role because they didn't know if it was going to still be there the next year. Like there's this kind of lack of certainty that happens when companies do this. And I think it's a problem. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we've talked about this previously, just around how like mass layoffs and cuts and things like that, really at the end of the day, either they don't really help necessarily financially, but also they are definitely something that is hurtful when it comes to just culture and certainty and confidence in the role and work and things like that. And you're absolutely right. I mean, I lived that with you. Like I remember that whole thing is like, oh, cool. Like we're doing away with these jobs, but then here's kind of the new ones that are very similar to that job with a new spicy kind of title. And everybody's like, well, I don't know if I want that job because that's also new and that might change, or maybe I do because maybe that's the one job that'll stick around again in a year from now. Who knows? But I just think that, yeah, like there's so much that's going on, and to your point, it's continuing, and there's more. Like I think I was like LinkedIn almost has like an article dedicated to it of like this week's layoffs from different companies that are going on. But like that's how continuous this is happening. But yeah, I think that it definitely has a real big effect in those that are there, and those that are like looking to see like what's going to happen next. And being in retail, and being in retail as long as I have in all parts of the country, I have a lot of people in my network, and I've seen a lot of them be impacted. I've seen some of them be able to have success, kind of transitioning into something else, and I see some of them that are still like trying to figure out what are they going to do and where are they going to work.
Yeah, I mean, Adam Grant has spoken about this in depth around how a mass cut or a mass layoff is the wrong way to go about doing things. And I agree with that as a first line of defense, that you should 100% be exploring other ways to get through this. Talking about a collective decision to, lower pay by 5% or 10% across the board. If everybody's on board with that, versus losing a lot of people. In a lot of organizations where there's a healthy culture of kind of family and everybody gets along, that can be a desirable outcome versus, cutting a mass amount of jobs. So I agree with him on that. But if those have failed, or if you haven't done the due diligence and truly it's a matter of life or death for the company, and in some cases this is the case, and you have to let people go, there is 100%. The data is clear here. It needs to be done all at once. You need to cut, what they say, was it cut once and cut deep? And yes, people will be injured by that, psychologically. But if they know that's all that is happening, at the very least, they can pick up the pieces and move forward. If you have a group of employees who don't know whether another round of cuts is coming 3 months or 6 months or a year later, all they're going to be doing is keeping their head down, making sure they're going about things as low key as possible. They're going to be looking for their jobs already. Your productivity is going to plummet in the meantime, versus if you can give people this certainty that it's already over and that we're going to move forward together as a team. And the people who are still here, we're here for the long haul. We're here for the long run together. And so, Lorenzo, I know that we went through a lot of this together. I'm sure there were times when you, as somebody in middle management, didn't have the benefit of clarity or certainty about how things were going to move, but you still had a responsibility to deliver clarity and certainty to your employees who were looking for that and who you could see without that clarity would not be performing well, would not be giving their all to their job because they're worried about whether they're next on the chopping block. So what I want to ask you is, how do you instill that in people when they might be worried, even if you're in a situation where you might not have it yourself? So I want to ask you that, but first I want to get up to word from one of our sponsors. All right, Lorenzo. So your boss isn't being clear with you. You're asking. They're saying, I'll let you know as soon as I know, but I don't know either. What do you say to your employees who might be, you're noticing they're not taking risks anymore. They're not, volunteering for the next thing. They're just kind of keeping their head down and getting their work done because they're worried that they're going to be, let go next. How do you kind of combat that if you don't have all the answers?
I think first and foremost, it's being transparent about exactly kind of where you're at and what you know or what you don't know, and saying things like, I don't have all the answers here. Because I think that some of this is aligning with the team to say like, hey, I understand because I'm also in a similar boat of not having the information that I want. But like, let's pull this back a little bit. Let's take some time to really think about this. Let's consider, why do we think we're seeing this? What do we think impacts this? What outside of our own four walls or our small bubble may be having a larger impact that we may be feeling, even though like we may not be feeling that thing locally. That the greater organization can be making decisions to do things that have a larger impact collectively across the entire organization. So I think that really just listening, but also taking some time to just talk through it, work through it, understand it. And then the belief. I think that there's also an element of belief to know that like changes are going to always happen. Things are going to evolve. Pivots need to be made. And quite honestly, like I've worked in organizations both ways, where an organization did nothing different and kept doing exactly what they were doing. And then as the economy changed, as the demand changed, buyer behavior changed, things in the industry changed, they did nothing. And that caused a lot of damage to the organization, including like a lot of people no longer having jobs and retail stores being closed, like a lot of things that happened. And then I've been a part of organizations that change constantly. And sometimes that can feel like a little bit of a whirlwind. It can seem like a roller coaster sometimes. It can feel like, man, like we're constantly changing. And sometimes I feel like maybe we don't have to change that. But you know what? We still do. Because at the end of the day, I'd rather be working with people and with an organization that's willing to make a change or an adjustment and be able to make another one later to correct it than work in an organization that does nothing and it kind of just sits there stagnant. And I think that having conversations like that with people, but also sharing those examples of the specificity of being an employee or being a leader in those times and in those situations, how I felt about it, what I did in the moment, what I learned from it, what I saw coming out of it, those times of sharing testimony as a leader in moments like this, I think are absolutely critical to bringing people through. And like that might not be good enough for everyone. That might not be enough clarity. That might not be enough that resonates with them, and to let them know that that's okay too. Because if that's something that like this just doesn't work well for you, then what does and where does, and what can we do to help you again get to a place in a position or an organization where you feel most at comfort and where you feel like you'll be able to do your best work. But I think sometimes it's like as leaders, we don't have enough information. And sometimes leaders will try to make up their own, or they'll say, here's what I think is going on, or here's my best guess. But we don't spend enough time just having that open dialogue and ideating back and forth with teams to make sure that they get a chance to also express maybe what they're thinking. Because as leaders, we have to remember that what we say sometimes is gospel. And if I just say what I'm thinking, people might actually take that as that's exactly what's happening, even though that might not be exactly what's happening. So I think you just have to have a lot of open dialogue in those spaces.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I also think that, while people do in a lot of cases expect their leader to have all the answers, not at the expense of the integrity of the relationship. And so if you can't make these up, even if you think you're right, you can't make them up. You can't say, oh no, everything's fine, if in your mind you don't know for sure everything's fine. If you know that the company is working on, there's going to be layoffs, we don't know where they're going to hit yet, then you can't say everything's fine in an effort to make sure that your people continue to be productive and work hard and think everything's fine. You will lose all integrity when it comes out later on that it isn't, even if you're hoping it's going to be fine. But that doesn't mean you should be saying, I don't know, maybe you should start looking at updating your resume. Like, you can't be cryptic about it either. There's you know what? I don't know. I know that the organization is trying to figure out where to cut costs, where to save money. I don't know how deep that extends into employees, labor, whatever that is. But hey, you know what? I know from my personal standpoint, I made sure my resume was up to date. I'm confident in my job here right now, but I want to make sure that I'm not naive to the fact that I need to prepare for the future and I have responsibilities to my family. And so I'm doing that also because sometimes things happen that I couldn't plan for, so I need to be prepared for them. And if you want help doing that, I'll help you do that too. If you want me to make sure that your resume is up to date, I'll help you. I hope you don't need it, but it's a good thing to have updated anyway. And so it's this not confidence that you have the answer, but confident that you're confident in what the way forward is, given that you don't have all the answers. That's where you have to convey that confidence as a leader, not kind of make things up, because you only get one shot to do that. And if one day you're wrong, you just lost the relationship altogether.
Absolutely. And with that, it brings us to the end of this episode. This is Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Lorenzo.
And I'm Chris.
And have a great day.